I'll never forget the night the drums of war echoed across our village. The air was thick with fear, and whispers of betrayal filled every corner. That was the night the rich man stood before the king, his voice booming like thunder, demanding, "Split the kingdom, or there will be blood." It all began in our small but powerful kingdom of Nondo. The king, known as King Mukoma, was a fair ruler. He was wise, respected, and loved by many. But not everyone admired him. One man, Ndoka, the richest man in the kingdom, had grown tired of living in the king's shadow. Ndoka wasn't just rich, he was clever. He owned the largest farmlands, controlled the markets, and even paid for the royal guard's new weapons. Many said his wealth gave him power even greater than the king's. But it wasn't enough for him. He wanted a crown of his own. I was there the day it all started. My name is Tumo, just a servant in the royal palace, but I've seen more than most. That afternoon, Noka arrived at the palace gates with an army of his men. They weren't carrying weapons, but their faces were hard, and their eyes burned with a strange hunger. Noka walked straight into the king's hall, his sandals stomping against the marble floor. He didn't bow. He didn't even greet the king. Instead, he slammed his staff against the ground and said, "King Mukoma, this kingdom is too big for one ruler. I demand you split it. I will take the northern lands and rule them as king." The room fell silent. You could hear the wind outside, the distant cries of birds. The king sat back on his throne, his face calm, but his eyes. I saw the fire in them. King Mukoma spoke slowly, "Noka, have you forgotten who I am? This is my father's land, and his father's before him. You do not demand from a king." But Noka wasn't afraid. He laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "Your people starve while I feed them. Your soldiers march because I pay them. You wear robes that I bought with my gold. Without me, this kingdom would crumble." The king stood, his voice shaking the walls. "Without me, you would be nothing. I am the heart of this land. And you, Ndoka, are just a greedy man with no loyalty." The two men locked eyes, and in that moment, the kingdom felt like it might crack in half. That night, Ndoka held a secret meeting in his estate. I was sent to spy on him, hidden among the shadows. He gathered the wealthiest men and most influential warriors. "The king will not listen," he said. "We will force his hand. Tomorrow, we march to the palace. If he won't split the kingdom, we'll take it from him." I ran back to the palace, my heart pounding. When I told the king, he didn't seem surprised. "Ndoka's greed knows no end," he said. "But he forgets, this kingdom is not built on gold. It's built on the people." The next day, Ndoka's men surrounded the palace. The rich man himself stood at the front, wearing a golden robe that glimmered in the sun. The king stood on the palace steps, unarmed but fearless. Before Ndoka could speak, the palace gates opened, and hundreds of villagers poured out. Farmers, fishermen, and even children. They carried sticks, stones, and farming tools. Their faces were set with determination. King Mukoma raised his hand. "You see, Ndoka, this is my kingdom. Not the lands, not the gold, but the people. They stand with me, not you." For the first time, I saw fear in Ndoka's eyes. His men began to step back, unsure. Without their support, Ndoka was nothing. The rich man fled that day, leaving behind his dreams of a crown. The king declared that no man, no matter how wealthy, could ever challenge the unity of the kingdom again. But even now, years later, when the wind howls at night, I can still hear Ndoka's voice, bitter and angry, whispering in the darkness. Some say he's still out there, waiting for his chance to return.